By 2050, there will be 10 billion people on Earth. In 1987, there were 5 billion.
Tear down this wall.
That's right, the world population has nearly doubled since the first Predator movie came out. And more people means more food. Now, feeding 10 billion people, that's not just a challenge, it's something we've never done before. We're talking about a planet-sized buffet that needs constant refilling, where innovation and ideas must outpace our appetites, or we literally risk biting off more than we can chew.
What was wasted last year would have fed our armed forces. That's like throwing victory into the garbage can.
But we're the human race. We invented the wheel, we harnessed the power of fire, we turned corn from this flimsy thing into this gigantic yellow monster. We even grew potatoes in space. So although feeding all these people is going to be a challenge, if we learn more about the world of food, we can all make the choices we need to make sure this huge round buffet table never runs empty. This is Real Ag.
Production of Real Ag is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from
Kansas Farmers Union, working to protect and enhance the economic interests and quality of life for family farmers, ranchers, and our rural communities. Learn more about our mission of education, cooperation, and legislative advocacy at kansasfarmersunion.org.
Supermarket, symbol of the high standard of living in this country today.
What's lost in perspiration is measured.
Even little radishes are cleaned until they shine like cherries.
It's the 1940s, and the United States is at war. Besides bullets, the government is churning out films like never before. There's Private Snafu, a cartoon aimed at teaching soldiers what not to do, like start rumors, get malaria, or write a letter back home to your sweetie giving away secrets. There's Food for Fighters, a straightforward pep talk about the importance of nutrition on the front lines. There's films explaining what this whole German army is up to, this Japanese army. Films explaining the complex new system of ration points. We've never had to navigate this before. And then, there's Hemp for Victory. Wait, hemp? While Americans are navigating new ration books and conserving every scrap, the government made a film about hemp? What was going on here? Alright, let's set the scene. It's 1942, and the United States is in the thick of World War II. The government is getting desperate. Japan's rapid expansion in the Pacific has cut off America's primary source of raw materials, especially industrial fibers like hemp, jute, and sisal.
But now, with Philippine and East Indian sources of hemp in the hands of the Japanese, and shipment of jute from India curtailed, American hemp must meet the needs of our Army and Navy as well as of our industries.
And suddenly, a plant that's been stigmatized for years because it's a close cousin to marijuana is back on Uncle Sam's list of essential crops. That's right, the U.S. government, the same one that had practically outlawed hemp a few years before, was now telling farmers to grow it for the good of the nation.
Hemp for mooring ships, hemp for tow lines, hemp for tackle and gear, hemp for countless naval uses both on ship and shore, thread for shoes for millions of American soldiers, and parachute webbing for our paratroopers.
The film showcases all of these uses for hemp. It even goes into some fun facts.
The Conestoga wagons and prairie schooners of pioneer days were covered with hempen canvas. Indeed, the very word canvas comes from the Arabic word for hemp.
And then the film dives into full-on infomercial mode. Step by step, it instructs farmers on how to grow, harvest, and process hemp. They made hemp look like the most straightforward, productive crop anyone could imagine. Farmers learned everything from soil preparation to fiber processing, complete with close-ups of machinery, turning these plants into strong, durable ropes. But that wasn't enough. The USDA doubled down. They handed out free seeds and machinery to incentivize planting. They even sweetened the deal with subsidies. They needed a lot of hemp, and they needed it fast.
In 1942, patriotic farmers, at the government's request, planted 36,000 acres of seed hemp, an increase of several thousand%. The goal for 1943 is 50,000 acres of seed hemp.
Hemp for Victory wasn't just some film, it was a call to arms. And by 1943, this propaganda blitz had worked. Tens of thousands of acres across the Midwest were transformed into hemp farms, and hemp processing plants began sprouting up like mushrooms. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the government's love affair with hemp came to an end. When the war wound down, so did the hemp campaign, and these fields were quickly replaced with other crops. And by 1950, it was as if the whole thing had never happened. But the story doesn't end here. You see, Hemp for Victory nearly disappeared. Buried so deeply, it was almost lost to history. After the war, the government seemed determined to erase this pro-hemp campaign, going so far as to deny this film's existence altogether. When activists and researchers stumbled upon mentions of it in the 1970s and sought official confirmation, government agencies flat out claimed there was no record of such a film. It was as if Hemp for Victory had been scrubbed from memory, like some type of George Orwell 1984 edit, leaving only whispers that this ever existed. But these activists, led by Jack Herer, Maria Farrow, and Carl Packard, weren't dissuaded. They searched through government archives, scoured library records, and eventually tracked down 2 original copies in the Library of Congress.
The movie you're about to see, for the last 20 years, the United States government says that no such movie was ever made by any department of the United States government. Now I'd like to show you a typical letter that was sent out denying that this movie was made by the United States Department of Agriculture or any other division of the United States government. Listen to it. And have been unable to locate any film with the title Hemp for Victory that was produced by any department of the federal government. Now, the government for years have been telling all of our media that this movie didn't exist, and all of our activists were being impugned on their integrity. We think, let the movie speak for itself. Please watch all 14 minutes of this film.
The truth was undeniable. Hemp for Victory was real. The government had, in fact, produced a pro-hemp propaganda film during World War II and then hidden it away, burying any acknowledgement of its previous endorsement. But this begs the question, why would the government want to deny it ever existed?
These high school boys and girls are having a hop at the local soda fountain. Innocently they dance, innocent of a new and deadly menace lurking behind closed doors. Marijuana, the burning weed with its roots in hell.
You see, from the 1930s onward, America was fed a steady diet of anti-marijuana propaganda, painting cannabis as a public enemy, and industrial hemp got caught in the crossfire. Despite its low THC levels, THC is the thing that gets you high, and usefulness for ropes, oils, and fibers, hemp was lumped in with marijuana and branded as a danger.
Rolled into harmless-looking cigarettes, hidden in an innocent shoe.
In fact, you could probably make a pretty safe bet that if you named any year between 1935 and 1990, you could find some piece of anti-marijuana propaganda. Films like Reefer Madness, Marijuana with an H, and Assassin of Youth weren't exactly subtle.
Debauchery, violence, murder, suicide.
this was shown in schools. Year after year, more of these things came out, and in the process, the lines between marijuana and hemp, that practical, non-psychoactive plant, were completely blurred.
Another depressant is marijuana, derived from the hemp plant.
The waters were so muddied that few people remembered that these things were actually quite different.
Every time you blow a marijuana cigarette, you take a chance on blowing your future.
But by the Cold War, this anti-cannabis message was rock solid. Cannabis was linked to the counterculture and rebellion, and the government wanted to look tough on anything remotely subversive. Admitting that that dangerous plant that was outlawed had once been a patriotic crop essential to the war effort would have exposed a pretty messy contradiction. So Hemp for Victory was buried, along with any memory of hemp's past, preferring a clear-cut anti-drug narrative over confronting years of muddy misinformation.
It would be stupid to take a chance. After all, he's no psychological cripple, unable to cope. Who needs a grass crutch? Much better to keep off the grass.
This is topsoil. To mankind, topsoil means food and life.
Maybe it needs a change. Maybe it wasn't even corn land in the first place.
That mean the difference between death and life for man.
We have to reshape and rethink agriculture, and building soil health is the way to make up for it, to basically move positively forward in a way where we're not going to lose the ability to feed everybody.
In short, we have more people coming into the world, less land to plant crops on, and less nutrient-dense soil. Not a good equation. In fact, the FAO recently said that by 2050, we could lose about 10% of crop yield just due to erosion. But what is erosion? Now this seems serious. I mean, listen to that music. It sounds like Bambi's mom is about to get shot.
This is erosion. This film will show you why wind erosion and water erosion occur and what they do to the land.
Let me see if I can find a light. Which is like the glamour shot of perennial grains. And when we bring people to campus, this is a great photo op because people can go down to the bottom, I'll do it, and show how, so this is the actual to scale image of the roots of a Kernza plant as compared to the scale of the roots of an annual wheat plant at its maximum depth. It's super inspiring, I think. And this image of these roots is, I think, a key way that humanity can relate to, again, natural ecosystems and the food that we eat. Yeah, and I'm 5'10", almost.
Meet Rachel Strower, the president of the Land Institute and a driving force in sustainable agriculture. Since taking the reins from founder Wes Jackson, Rachel has brought fresh energy and forward-thinking ideas to this groundbreaking organization. With a deep respect for the Land Institute's legacy and a clear vision for the future, Rachel is leading the charge to create a more sustainable world. Today, we'll be sitting down to discuss Kernza, her journey to the big chair, and how perennial crops can help solve the problem of agriculture. So before I get to questions I haven't heard you answer yet, I want to get the ones out of the way that you've been asked a billion times, okay. 1,000,000,001 now. What is a perennial crop and why is it important?
Good question.
Thank you so much.
So a perennial crop, by our definition, is a crop that lives and produces food for 3 or more years. So that's the simple definition. An annual is what almost all of our agriculture is based on today. An annual is planted and produces once and dies or is killed off. It cannot produce more than one crop in its life. And so the idea there is that the perennial is persistent, it regrows year over year, and it eliminates what we think is sort of the root cause of most of the extractive, degrading nature of our current ag system, which is its annual nature. And a perennial planted just by its nature eliminates the need for a lot of the detrimental aspects of our ag system. It eliminates the need for tillage on an annual basis. It eliminates the need, ultimately, we hope, of chemical inputs. It reduces labor costs, it reduces diesel use and passes on a farm, saves soil, it regenerates soil rather than leaving it open for erosion and deterioration as in the annual system. So that's a long answer to what is the perennial.
I appreciate you answering. I know that's like part of your job title is just to explain that to people that don't get it.
Tom, have you ever given any thought to the dairy industry? You know, though most people aren't aware of it, it's one of our nation's greatest by any standard. By the volume of its business, the number of its plants, the people it employs. Here, take a look at this.
All right, let's rewind a little bit. Since the 1930s, the US government has been churning out more than just policies. They've been producing films about the drink that's as familiar as it gets. That's right, milk. Even during the age of silent films, we were talking about milk. Let's go to the 1930s. They were tough times, to put it mildly. The Great Depression left many Americans scraping by, and dairy farmers were no exception. Overproduction created a milk surplus, but widespread poverty meant few could afford it. Prices collapsed, and milk was often dumped. In fact, desperate dairy farmers would launch things called milk strikes, blocking roads and dumping milk to push for fair prices. Recognizing the huge role of dairy in both rural livelihoods and urban food supplies, the U.S. government stepped in with a campaign to boost milk demand. They began producing films that showed milk as an essential part of a healthy diet, encouraging families to make it a staple while aiming to stabilize prices for struggling farmers, turning a pretty bad situation into an opportunity for public health improvement and economic recovery. And the government knew they needed to win over the next generation, too. They produced pieces for kids like Tip Tops in Peppy Land. Clowns named Pep, Strength, and Health tumbling around, text to read in between because no sound yet, and of course, cartoons to explain all the health benefits of milk. Want to be able to do some pull-ups or a backflip? Well, you better start drinking some milk. And when the 1940s rolled on in, so did World War II, and milk's importance only grew. Even more films promoted milk's importance. Farmers were encouraged to produce more milk, and not just for us at home, but for those soldiers overseas. What about those countries we're friends with now? Hey, they're gonna need some milk. Milk wasn't just a white liquid anymore. It was part of winning the war. These government films positioned milk as an essential for America's strength, health, prosperity, and resilience. Part of the American way, just as crucial as apple pie, baseball, or even...
Because folks need milk every day as much as, well, almost as much as the oxygen in the air.
Quite the statement. But by the 1950s, milk was a star. Not because it was glamorous, but because it was the great equalizer. Affordable, accessible, packed with all those health benefits we were told so much about. Through the lens of a camera, the government made milk into more than just a food. It was a tradition, and a key ingredient in the story of America's strength.
Milk gives us energy.
Refresh with milk.
Fresh milk.
Ever drink a glass of milk to relax you?
Staple in man's diet. Milk, health and beauty.
Another way is to drink milk. Quality of milk.
We need more milk. Nature's greatest food.
Milk helped shape the course of civilization. Milk is one of the most important protective foods.
Milk and milk products.
A lot of milk.
Milk by milk.
Milk is standard equipment. Drink as much milk as we should.
Why not tie your future to milk?
Now, looking back at all of this, government films about milk have not only promoted the dairy industry, but have also chronicled the profound transformations within it. These films celebrate the spirit of American agriculture, highlighting the challenges, achievements, innovations that have shaped dairy farming over nearly a century. The common thread through these pieces? Well, throughout these decades, the small farmer remained the essential piece of the dairy puzzle. Their resilience and adaptability kept the industry thriving. With each technological advancement and increase in production, it seemed obvious that these changes were beneficial for everyone involved. All these advancements, increased production, must be a good thing. Right? Well, here we are at a Kansas rest stop bathroom. It's got all the classics. Fluorescent lights, the smell of industrial strength cleaner doing its best but not quite winning, metal toilets, and the piece de resistance, a giant mural of wheat. Because nothing says welcome to the sunflower state like pondering the golden waves of grain while trying not to touch anything. But maybe that's fitting, because wheat is everywhere in Kansas. It's in our fields, on our license plates, in our kitchens. If you look at old books of Kansas political campaign songs like I do, you'll see that plenty of them actually sing about wheat. We even had a marketing thing called the Kansas Wheat Girl, and she hung out with the president. And of course, wheat also inspires some pretty breathtaking bathroom art. But wheat has changed in Kansas. Sure, the murals still make it look like the endless golden waves go on forever, but in the real fields, it's a different story. Climate change has brought hotter summers, unpredictable rainfall, and late frosts that keep farmers on their toes. The wheat Kansas is known for, the hard red winter wheat that feeds the world, is facing challenges it didn't used to. Yields are changing, diseases are spreading, and some fields aren't as golden as they used to be.
I see a model that I could get behind and get excited about.
Meet Jason Schmidt, a small dairy farmer who brings genuine care and a hands-on approach to every part of the process.
Implementing rotational grazing, even though I've got a lot of room to improve there. As soon as I bought this farm, installed a 15.6 kilowatt solar array. 45 to 50% of my electricity is from the solar array, just because I see electrification as the way forward. So I'm proud every year I can realize that I cut back a little bit more of my fuel use.
In an industry of large-scale dairies with 10,000 plus cows, where sustainability and animal welfare can sometimes get lost, Grazing Plains is committed to something different.
I would say my overarching goal is to look towards natural ecosystems and understanding animals' biology and physiology and how they were evolved to live their best lives.
You've probably seen the logos of some of those big milk brands, cheerful cows grazing in wide green pastures. But for most large-scale dairy farms, that image is more marketing than reality. Here at Jason's farm, though, it's the real deal. The cows really do roam in open fields. They're cared for with attention, respect, just like those logos make you think. It's the kind of farm where what you would see on the carton actually matches the reality behind it. And it's not just about the image. It's about real choices that put the cows first, even if it means sacrificing some profit.
Having the animals out in an extensive system rather than in a confined area. Anytime cows are spending a lot of time on concrete, they're developing feet issues. Their hooves keep on growing. They develop more lameness. than if they're out grazing. That also means that production goes way down. I think I can make up the loss in production by being the lowest cost producer, by having them eat their own meals rather than me carrying all the food. But lower production means healthier animals too. If you're not making the cow milk 100 pounds a day, she's going to have a longer life, a healthier life, less metabolic issues.
Jason doesn't push his cows to the limit. He chooses not to milk them as hard as some of the large operations do. By giving the cows more rest and time, he ensures they stay healthy and happy, even if it means producing a bit less. It's a different approach, one that prioritizes animal care over squeezing out every last drop.
I mean, again, my leading goal is try to give the animal the best life she was evolved to have.
This is the kind of dairy farm you'd see in those old government films. The idyllic image of cows grazing peacefully, treated with care and respect. It's exactly the image of dairy we were all sold. The small, family-run farm with a deep commitment to animal welfare. So, Jason's farm must be doing well, right?
Yeah, but that's the reality, is that the traditional farming life for a small dairy farmer is gone, because it requires every bit of two incomes to survive.
Unfortunately, it's not so simple. Despite embodying the wholesome vision that big brands in those classic films still promote, farms like Grazing Plains are facing incredible challenges. Choosing animal care over aggressive production comes at a cost. And in today's market, every gallon counts. In fact, even with soaring milk prices from inflation, you'd be shocked how much of that actually goes to the farmer.
100 gallons divided by 8.6 equals, and so let me divide $20 a hundredweight by 11.6, and I receive $1.72 a gallon. So if you're paying $4 a gallon in the store, you know I get less than half of that.
And how coyotes benefited was, one, you removed their biggest competitor, wolves. Wolves kept coyotes in check. Now, originally, coyotes were not east of the Mississippi River. They were grasslands, they were mountainous, they were forests of the west. Removing their biggest competitor, that opened up a landscape for them to occupy. But the other thing is the creation of farms, the habitat conversion. Coyotes don't need those hundreds of square miles that I talked about at the beginning with wolves. Coyotes live in pairs. They produce pups. They kick the pups out in the fall. They can live in nooks and crannies. They can live in the backyard of a farm. They live along fence lines. They eat everything.
Production of Real Ag is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from
Kansas Farmers Union, working to protect and enhance the economic interests and quality of life for family farmers, ranchers, and our rural communities. Learn more about our mission of education, cooperation, and legislative advocacy at kansasfarmersunion.org.